Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Guns N' Roses Central. And it's Tuesday morning, which means it's time to talk about this past week's Guns N' Roses news. And this news kind of came out of nowhere. So, there's been a lot of speculation in terms of what is Axl going to do in 2018. Is he going to return AC/DC? Well, it looks like AC/DC's Brian Johnson returned to the stage in a surprise cameo with the band Muse at the Reading Festival. So he sang Back in Black after 18 months after he'd basically been forced to quit AC/DC due to hearing problems. So the appearance marked the second time Johnson has performed live in the past 3 months. In May, the singer joined Robert Plant and Bad Company's Paul Rodgers on stage in Oxford, England to sing Money, That's What I Want. And he also said, "This means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Thank you, boys," Johnson told Muse after the Reading rendition. So it's unclear as to whether he's going to return to AC/DC, but it seems like he's getting in, probably in better shape than he was to perform live, compared to 2016. So we'll be following the story as it breaks, guys, to let you know what's going to happen with Axl and AC/DC. Let's go on to our next news story. So we've got a new interview with Slash from Guns N' Roses. So Slash has only really done, I think, 2 interviews since the reunion started. He did the one with Joey Kramer of Aerosmith, and then he did an interview this past week. Actually, the interview was conducted after Guns N' Roses show in Dubai on March 3rd, 2017. So this is a pretty old interview, but it just got published recently. So it was an interview with Leslie West, and there was a couple things that he touched on in regards to the reunion. He also mentioned some things about Izzy. So let's take a look at what Slash said. So the stuff about Izzy wasn't anything new that we didn't already know. He just referenced Izzy when he first played with Axl and Izzy and talked a bit about some riffs that Izzy wrote as well. So one question he was asked was, "It's always best when it's the guys just jamming together. We didn't have that in Mountain." To which Slash said, "Yeah, that's the way it starts out, with just the original members in a room doing it. It's hard to recapture that innocence as you start to become successful. You have people coming in from all over the place. They have ideas for the music or the show. It's inevitable. You don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be somebody. You have to fight and claw to keep the integrity. A lot of the time you try to go along with stuff, but your gut is telling you that this isn't right." He was also asked, "Well, you had the talent and the drive and you had the songs, and what made it work was you guys were a great effing group." So to which Slash responded, "When it was firing on all cylinders, I like to consider it a great rock and roll group on its own merit. It wasn't because of gimmicks. Obviously, it was highly volatile. And now that we're back together without getting too much into it, we're able to talk about it and identify people who got in the way. It's great to be past all that without having to listen to anybody's input, not managers, not business people. We just do what we're good at, and it's nice to have been well received." And I think it's obvious that Slash's comments are directed at Doug Goldstein, who was Guns N' Roses' manager back in the 90s and early 2000s. So if you guys want to read the entire interview, I've linked to it down below. One interesting fact is that both Leslie West and Slash were ranked in Rolling Stone's top 100 guitarist issues. I think Slash was like 66th or 65th, and Leslie West was one spot below him or something. Let's go on to our next news story. So it looks like Axl Rose's childhood home is actually up for sale. So this is Axl's home from like 1962 to 1980 in Lafayette, Indiana. And it's for sale for $69,400 American, and it's about 800 square feet, and it's 1 bathroom. Now, you guys may be wondering, well, Sid, how do you guys know that this is his childhood home? So there's a video on YouTube where this guy has this channel where he visits famous landmarks that, that celebrities have been to or they lived at, or he visits graves of famous people. And one of the videos he did was about Axl's home. So here's the screenshot of Axl's home from that video, and you can tell that they're matching. The only difference is the color of the door. Everything else looks identical. So if you guys want to see that video of his childhood home, you can check it out. And then these are some photos from the actual real estate listing. So according to one of the posters on the MyGNR forums who's familiar with the area, the area is fairly low income, and it's also got a pretty high crime rate that's been rising in the last several years. We've also got some more information about the Guns N' Roses tour numbers. So we know how successful the On This Lifetime tour has been, but where does this stack up against the biggest tours of all time? So it's the 10th highest grossing tour of all time, according to Wikipedia. So number 9, just ahead of Guns N' Roses, is Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, the tour they did back in 2012 and 2013. Now, it's important to note that Guns N' Roses have only played 74 shows, while Bruce Springsteen's band played 136. We had the Police racking $402 million, but they played 156 shows. And then we'll skip through some of these, but the Rolling Stones 2005 to 2007 tour, they played 144 shows, and they pulled in $644 million. And then U2 is number 1 with their 360 tour. from 2009 to 2011. They played 110 shows. They brought in almost $800 million, which is really crazy. But their average attendance was quite high too. They had 66,000 people attending the average U2 show, while Guns N' Roses are a little bit lower. They have 41,000 or 42,000 people attending each of their shows. And then we got some news about Bumblefoot. He's going to be playing a festival in Dhaka in Bangladesh. If you're going to the festival, you can actually win a chance to perform live with him. So they have a contest running. They want to select 2 vocalists, 2 guitarists, 2 bassists, and 2 drummers who will sing or play their respective instruments with Bumblefoot on September 15th at the Russian Cultural Center. And the contest will run from August 21st to September 10th. And then we've got some strange news concerning Slash. So Amber Rose altered an existing tattoo she had of her ex-husband Wiz Khalifa on her arm to make it look like Slash. So she had been previously married to Wiz Khalifa, but she posted some photos on social media where she altered the tattoo, as you can see here, to make it look like Slash from Guns N' Roses. And then we also had a shout out from Slash to the people of Southeast Texas affected by the tropical storm Harvey at this time. And then we also had Duff retweeting a tweet by the Houston police who were basically looking for volunteers. And then we also had some shout outs from Duff to his daughter Grace, who turned 20 this week, so happy birthday to her. And then Duff also tweeted out his thoughts and prayers for the people attacked in Barcelona, which was last week, but I didn't have a chance to cover it as part of my YouTube video last week. And then we also had Slash give a shout out to Fergie. She's got a new record, You Already Know, out. And then when I did my video for the Winnipeg recap, I know some of you guys said the audio got cut off. So the part that got cut off was just there was a nice article about all of the past shows that Guns have done in Winnipeg, and this newspaper actually, the Winnipeg Free Press, published all of their old reviews of Guns. So they played Winnipeg in 87, 88, 93, and I think 2006, and then 2010 as well. So let's take a look at their 1987 show. So on August 24th, 1987, it was almost 30 years to the date. Guns N' Roses played the Winnipeg Arena opening for the Cult, and accounts from some of those in attendance, as well as the brief press review, were mixed. Some said it was a mess, while others said it was the beginning of something great. So John Kendall, who was the editor at Can't Star News, was at the show and even bumped into the iconic frontman Axl Rose and Slash the night before at Blue Note Cafe on Main Street, which was a popular live music spot in the 80s and 90s in Winnipeg. So Kendall, who was basically freelancing in Winnipeg Sun, as well as working at Sam the Record Man at the time, recalls that he and some of his friends were sitting in the Blue Note after a crowded house concert, and basically amongst the group at his table, it was a British teen, Dave Wall, with whom he was discussing Guns N' Roses. And almost serendipitously, Dave turned around and went, "Holy F, is that Axl?" And it was Axl and Slash. No one really knew who they were other than the people with whom they'd arrived. A couple of girls and a guy. Dave was really excited. He was maybe 16 to 17 at the time, and I was 22. Dave leapt over and said, "I saw you guys in Manchester. They loved that," Kendall says. "I started talking to Axl about what I'd read in a music magazine about him having trouble at the border in southern Ontario, and he said it was because they get hassled a lot, and he took to carrying around a cattle prod on the bus, and guards said it was an offensive weapon, and it was confiscated at the border, but it wasn't a big deal," Kendall says, laughing. They had a few beers. Other people were talking to Slash. He had just this wild, unruly mane of hair, and his eyes were hidden behind it, and he was wearing the original version of the top hat, and they hung out. They said, "I took off because I had to open the store the next day," and his friends stuck around, and at one point they got up and did Heartbreak Hotel, and my friend Mitch Potter said the guy Axl has a siren of a voice. It wasn't the best version of Heartbreak Hotel you'd ever heard, but you could tell Axl had something. And obviously they did have something, more than 30 years later, 6 studio albums later, 100 million records sold. So the actual review I've linked to down below. So when Guns opened for the Cult, they played to about 5,000 people. So it's a pretty good size crowd, but it's definitely not the size of crowds they're attracting today. So the review in 1987 said that Guns N' Roses seem even louder than its opener. So if you guys want to read the entire review, I've linked to it down below. I do want to talk about their 93 show on the Skin and Bones tour. So they played Winnipeg on March 24th, 1993 to a sold-out crowd of about 16,000 people at the Winnipeg Arena. The show wasn't that well reviewed. It got 3 out of 5. They basically said that for a lot of the concert, Axl was basically not in a good mood. He was basically singing a lot of the show next to Matt's drum riser sitting down, and that was like one song after the other. So it seemed like they weren't all too thrilled with the show, but 3 out of 5 still decent. When they came back in 2006, They got a 4 out of 5 from the paper. And then in 2010, they got 4 out of 5 as well. Now, in 2006, they played to a crowd of about 11,000 people, and then 2010, they played to about 7,500 people. So that does it for this week's news, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, make sure you hit subscribe if you like these videos and you want to see more of them, and be sure to follow me on social media. The links to all my channels are down below in the description box. Take care.